All right, hi everyone. Welcome to this edition of Believe in Bills. And some big news coming down today. Adam Benigni of WGRZ TV, Sports Talk Live Buffalo, Sal Maiorana, Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. Sal, receiver has been such a point of contention and focus for this Buffalo Bills fan base and this organization throughout the course of the season. One of the reasons they ultimately came up short, and they have addressed it now. Reported trade with the Chicago Bears for DJ Moore. Bills send their second-round pick to Chicago. They get Moore and a fifth-rounder back, which seems like a very good deal for Buffalo in light of their obvious need at that position.
First of all, welcome back, Adam. It's good to have you flying with my co-pilot here. I had to go solo for a couple of weeks with some draft guys, which were good shows, but I'm glad to have you back here. The DJ Moore trade, Adam. I'm going to balk a little bit here. I'm not overly thrilled by what they gave up to get DJ Moore. I think he's a good player. There's no doubt he'll come in and he'd be their number one receiver. I do not think that giving up a second round pick was a wise use of an asset. And you take on his contract. Now I know they're gonna manipulate this first year, and I think I saw somewhere they can get his number. It's like $24 million. They can get it down to about $7.5 million for the cap, but they're also going to be guaranteeing money in the future. So I think I saw Albert Breer broke it down as it'll end up being like a 3-year, $73 million contract. I don't know. DJ Moore is 29 years old. He has been a very good player with Carolina and the Bears. I just don't know that you had to do this and give up a second-round pick to get him. You've got guys in free agency that you wouldn't have had to give up anything for outside of the money. I don't know what the need was to make the trade. I know he has ties to Joe Brady from Carolina. By the way, we heard that when they brought in Curtis Samuel. He played great for Joe Brady. What did that do for the Bills? Absolutely nothing. And now, granted, I think DJ Moore is a better player than Curtis Samuel, and we'll see. I was not blown away by the deal, Adam. I just wasn't. I think you could have waited till free agency. There are guys that would have been available probably at slightly lower price points than DJ Moore, and you wouldn't have had to trade a second-round pick, which this team needs. I mean, I know Brandon Beane knows this. I know he understands that he needs these picks. I even asked him last week at the Combine, you've only got 7 picks this year, and 2 of those are in the 7th round. And no disrespect for 7th to 7th rounders, I told Brandon, but those guys generally don't make a difference. So you got 5 picks to play with. Do you need to nail every one? Well, now he just gave him a second-round pick. He gets a 5th-round pick back. But even those guys are rolls of the dice in the 5th round. So, yeah, I'm going to push back on you on that one. I'm not thrilled. We'll see. He could be a very good player for them. I just wasn't thrilled with the package they had to give up to get him and the money they're taking on.
Well, the concern is, aside from the finances, is there's been a dip in his production recently, right?
Well,
and that's your red flag as you hit 29 years old. That's kind of the confluence of events that raises the caution flag there.
Yeah, they've got a couple guys in Chicago this past year, Dunze, and the other guy is slipping my mind. Who was their other receiver, their other starting receiver? Do you remember? I forget. But he was basically their 3rd receiver this year. That's why his catches came all the way down to 50. He just didn't have as many targets as he's had in the past. So I don't know if it was so much that he's aging. I just think that they had some pretty good receivers that they wanted to get involved with. They also throw to their tight ends a lot this year, and they ran the ball a lot. So I think that was partially why his numbers came down. But as I said at the top, he is 29 years old. I just there were younger guys available in free agency who, again, like I said, I don't think would have cost quite as much, and you wouldn't have been giving up your 2nd-round pick. Now, I'm sure we're going to get into all this, but this could only be step 1 of a plan. Maybe they've got a way to recoup that 2nd-round pick. There could be another trade that's coming down the road here. Who knows? But I just initially, as I look at this at 3:00 Eastern time, 3 hours after it happened, I'm not quite blown away yet, but I am willing to see what comes next.
But I guess, it addresses not just a need, but the type of receiver they need. Is that fair? mean, all of a sudden
right.
you look at that combination. I guess that's why, I mean, they got the type of receiver and an established one, okay? Now, which you could get in free agency as well. The draft, I still think they need to address, we can talk about this a little bit later. I still think they need to address the position in the draft without question. And you're not going to have the complete picture until you see what happens coming out of the draft itself. And then, wait and see how whatever assets they acquire there develop. But in terms of more, they get the type of player more in line with what they've been lacking, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a need-based trade, and I think he gets a guy with experience and some proven production in his past to address that particular dynamic in the offense.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like I said, he comes in right now, he would be the number one receiver on this team. I mean, he wouldn't be the number one receiver for every team in the NFL, clearly, but for the Bills, he would be. He's better than Josh Palmer, clearly better than Curtis Samuel, who won't even be on the team pretty soon, and he's better than Keon Coleman. So, and Shakir just plays a different role. I think Moore fits in well. He's going to be a boundary receiver, which they lacked. I don't think he has the top end speed anymore, but he wins routes. He has got the full route tree. Like you said, he's been in the league for 8 years maybe that he's played. So he's been around. He has produced. It's exactly the kind of guy that they do need. I'm just wondering the cost to get him in. And he is a 29-year-old receiver, and there is a certain limit to receivers that they get to a certain age and things start to happen. Again, his production drop last year, I don't think was because of age. I think it was more because of circumstance. But yeah, you're right. He fills a need, and we've been screaming for a long time that they have to address wide receiver. Now you bring up the draft, which we're going to get into here. This does not preclude the Bills from picking a receiver in the draft. In fact,
not at all.
I was on the radio today with Catalana and DeTulio here.
It might mandate it more. It might actually mandate it as much, if not more, in other words.
I said it would not surprise me at all, and it wouldn't bother me if they still picked a receiver in the first round. Now, do I think they're going to do that? Even before this trade, Adam, I was leaning towards they're probably going to pick a defensive guy because of all the changes that have to take place on defense, and they would go second round with a receiver because there's, you talk to draft analysts, and a lot of them will tell you there's maybe 2 or 3 guys that are like top 20 picks, and then a couple, maybe 2 or 3 that are going to be late first round, early second. But then you get to Buffalo's, the pick Buffalo used to have at number 60, and there was going to be like 5, 6, 7 guys that all would have been there and would have been fine choices if the Bills had gone that way. So I think they're still going to take a receiver at some point. But if it's not the first round, now you're going to be pushing back to the third round. And I don't quite know. You can probably still get a guy, but maybe not the same level in the third round that you would have earlier in the draft. So again, you're right. Wide receiver is a huge issue. They need to be better. And I don't think that DJ Moore is the be all end all. I think that they should absolutely draft a guy and, have a guy in the pipeline ready to go, because I think Keon Coleman has proven that he's not the guy to have in the pipeline. I think they need somebody else, some other young kid to be the next guy for the Bills.
I mean, do you think he moves Coleman? I think he'd like to, right?
I don't think they will, Adam, at least, not right now. I mean, we'll see when they get through training camp. You never know. A team has an injury. There might be a need for a player. They're not going to get much back. We know this. I don't think he'll move him right away, because right now there's no market for Keon Coleman. He's going to be a guy that if they're going to move him, in my opinion, it'll be because some team is desperate for a receiver at the end of training camp because they have injuries, and he's a guy that might be available.
What is this? Let's, on that point, I mean, based on what we know right now, of course, they're going to add a receiver in the draft. That player is going to factor in, and we'll see what happens in terms of free agency as well. But okay, so let's just project more as your number one, right? Obviously you'll have Khalil Shakir, but does this give Coleman more of an opportunity, if they do hang on to him, to kind of find his niche and play in a role with a set of demands that are more suited to his skills?
Well, maybe. I mean, you look at it, it's going to be, you would think it's going to be DJ Moore, Josh Palmer, Khalil Shakir being the top three. Coleman's going to be your four. And who knows if they draft a kid, maybe he's the four. Maybe Coleman is just there in case there's injury. Maybe they can find a way to move Keon Coleman around a little bit. Now, Shakir is their established slot guy, but you've heard people talk for both years he's been here. He probably is better suited to being a slot player. Maybe Joe Brady, now that he's in charge of the whole operation, maybe he can find ways to rotate Shakir and Coleman around a bit. I've always said, I don't understand why Khalil Shakir can't go on the outside. The guy can run routes downfield. We've seen it. I don't think he has to be a solely slot player. So maybe they try to move Keon inside in some of their formations and see what he can do. I think he could. There's potential. He's a physical kid. There's potential there to have that happen. So I'm not going to rule Keon Coleman completely out yet. We've heard Brady and Bean just in the last month or so talk about how they think it's still there. They still think that they can get something from him. Brady, you heard the quote, the famous quote from Brady now. Keon Coleman's going to be the happiest guy that I'm his head coach now. Okay, well, you said it. Now prove it.
How happy is Coleman today? He had to expect this, right?
Well, yeah. Look, Keon Coleman is going to have to fight for his job. There's
as he should.
As he should. He's proven nothing so far. He does not get an automatic pass to this roster, especially given all the off-field nonsense that he's given the Bills. So yeah, he's going to have to fight for his job. And if they draft a guy, he's going to really have to fight for his job. So we'll see. But I'm not ready to write him off yet. Let's take this through the offseason here, take it through mini camps and training camp. And like I said, at the end of training camp, maybe there's an opportunity you move away from him if a team is desperate to bring in a wide receiver.
All right. So, and that's, you have to consider leverage points, right?
Yeah.
And you just keyed on it, desperation.
Exactly.
Right now, an opposing general manager can bargain with all of the off-field stuff against Brandon Bean and looking to make a deal or whatever. It makes sense to make a move when a team is close to the start of the regular season and needs help at the position. So I think you're absolutely Adam, right with that.
If he tried to move him now, you'd be lucky to get a 6th-round pick. I mean, 7th round probably. Maybe if you wait, like you said about leverage, maybe you can pry a 5th rounder out of a desperate team at the end of training camp. We'll see. If that's what
I don't see it much more than that.
Thinking.
I don't see him netting much more than a 5th round pick, even under those circumstances. Do you?
No, he's a second. If he was a 1st round pick in 24, okay, maybe you could say 4th or 5th round. But as a 2nd round pick who has underwhelmed for 2 years and been a knucklehead off the field, yeah, I mean, you're going to be pushing it to get a 5th round pick, even from a team that's desperate. So the market's just not there for him. His best bet, Adam, would be to play his ass off and make this team and find a way to contribute. That would be get through the last 2 years of his contract, go to free agency with maybe some momentum, and go make something of yourself in your 5th year in the NFL.
So we're spending so much time on the receiver position for obvious reasons at the start of this particular podcast with the DJ Moore news coming down today, just prior to us recording this, but glaring needs on the defensive side as well. And if you had, in terms of the free agency, which is first, that's on the front burner, draft is close on the back burner coming up as well. But I would expect them to address, free agency, I think, is going to feature some defensive additions, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. At this point, I would definitely say the Bills, now that they've made the trade for a wide receiver, they should concentrate early in free agency on filling some of the defensive holes. It'd be great to draft, some kids too, and I think they will. But this is a defense that's going to be in complete transition. They need to bring in some veteran players who have had, some guys maybe have had ties to Jim Leonard through the past, but at least get veteran guys who can come in and play the type of system that Leonard's going to run. Now we've gone through a couple of the guys with ties, the guys that I've already written about who I think would be ideal fits. Like Leo Chenal is, to me, come Wednesday afternoon, Adam. Well, actually Monday when the negotiation starts and things start leaking. The first name I want to see is Leo Chenal is going to be reportedly coming to the Bills. I think he's a perfect fit. He played for Leonard at Wisconsin for his whole collegiate career. He's been a pretty good player for Kansas City. They didn't always have him on the field because of the defense they ran, but when he's played, he's been very good. I think he'd be a perfect fit. And the guy for Denver, Justin Sternad, is another one. People are talking about Alex Singleton from Denver. He's a little older. He's going to be, I think, 33. He was their leading tackler. He was a stud for them in this defense, but that's a player who's a little bit older. Sternard was kind of like the backup guy who played plenty. I think he'd be an ideal fit. So I think the Bills should attack the defensive side immediately in free agency, see where that goes. And then when you get to the draft, then you start filling in, maybe you get your edge rusher in the draft, maybe a safety in the draft. But to me, it's I didn't say defensive tackle. It's linebacker and a run stuffing defensive tackle are where I think they should focus early in free agency.
We agree on that. All right, so let's get in as we plot and project on all these moves. The salary cap situation is a challenge for Buffalo, right? And the Moore trade accentuates that challenge. It was expensive in terms of assets, and it was expensive in terms of that contract. Now, obviously, they can manipulate in those types of things, but in light of the Moore trade, and I know you've crunched some of the numbers in some of what you've written at the Democrat and Chronicle, how limited is Brandon Beane in trying to accomplish all of this, particularly in terms of free agency?
I think he actually has more room to work with probably than he's had in a couple of years, Adam. I did a thing a few weeks ago, kind of a path to how he can create space. I think I created about $45 million in cap space by doing some things that really are pretty simple. The easy things, cutting Taylor Rapp and Curtis Samuel, creates some obvious cap space. And then there's conversions on contracts. He's already done Spencer Brown. He's going to do Josh Allen. There's a couple other players that they could really, guys that are going to be here. You can do this with. You could push the money down the road. So the simple moves that I was making in my story, I created about $45 million. So I think he's going to have some room to play with. He doesn't, and he spoke at the Combine about how you can't keep kicking money down the road every year. But quite frankly, Adam, you kind of can, right? I mean, the cap just went up $22 million this year. So you can't do it exorbitantly, but you can do it the way that Beane has done it in the past. Now, at some point, it is finally all going to catch up to you. And there's going to be a year where you're just going to have to eat an enormous amount to reset yourself. But I don't think the Bills are quite there yet. I think he's got some room to maneuver. And as I said, I think he can get to a number of cap space that will allow him to do some things in this free agency period.
One thing from the Combine, and this kind of got a lot of attention as we talk about, balancing out these numbers, creating room, building a roster, first-year head coach now in Joe Brady. Brady, in the course of being interviewed and the kind of the media hype surrounding the Combine, it was like in an echo chamber, talking about what Brandon Beane had said prior. It's tough, when you're paying a quarterback like Josh Allen. Okay,
they got to stop saying
that. It was a rocket launcher among the fan base, and you know what? I can understand why.
Yeah,
teams that win Super Bowls have franchise quarterbacks.
Yeah,
they have
stop complaining about it.
Right. Like Josh Allen is the solution. He's the solution. He's not even remotely part of the problem. I mean, I understand it, but I mean, look, and I hate to bring up the example. I said this on Sports Talk Live Buffalo the other night. I mean, Belichick Brady during that dominant era, which came so much at Buffalo's expense, they were the quintessential examples of how Belichick did it better, and that organization did it better than anyone in terms of you have a franchise quarterback in Brady, the idea being the maximum number of players on the roster on their rookie contracts making significant contributions. That's the formula to win. And you know what that does? That puts pressure on team management to hit on these draft picks, right? Yeah. And you could argue based on impact where Beane has fallen short. We've heard a lot of this criticism. So I think that's the dynamic, right? He hasn't had the return on high-end picks in the draft that he's needed to. right? So you play out that dynamic, and then Brady kind of saying that, they talk about alignment. Well, they're aligned on that issue, something they're going to need to get over and get done in order to accomplish the ultimate goal for this franchise. So I get where a very informed fan base gets extremely frustrated to hear that at this point from Joe Brady as he takes over as head coach with extreme expectations with what they haven't done with Josh Allen on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing for Bean to be bitching about it, for Brady to double down and mention, well, it's tough when you're paying your quarterback this much. Would you rather not be paying a quarterback like Josh Allen and then being, the Jets trying to sign whoever, Kyler Murray, to be their 25th quarterback in the last 10 years? Is that what you'd really rather do? Or would you rather pay Josh Allen superstar money because he is a superstar and then build around him? The problem with the Bills, Adam, it isn't Josh Allen's contract that's the problem. It's giving Dawson Knox. A salary that was ridiculous when they gave it to him. He's supposed to count $17 million this year. He's not going to because they're going to fix that.
Curtis
Samuel, Josh Palmer's contract. I'll give you Deion Dawkins and Ed Oliver. They're two of the four highest cap hits the Bills have this year. But it's these other contracts that he's given that haven't really been all that smart. I mean, it's hard to say they're not smart because you got to do some of these things to keep players in the league. But it's the other contracts. They're top heavy. They've got like 7 or 8 guys that are in that $9 million or more average annual salary. And it's tough to build a team when you got that many guys making that much money, including your quarterback, who even after you do the conversion this year is still going to cost about $42 million. So stop bitching about it and stop doing stupid contracts like the Dawson Knox contract, which was never smart. And that was done even before they drafted Kincaid. It was even worse when they drafted Kincaid. You just paid this guy. Now you're going to use a first-round pick? None of that made sense to me.
Well, in terms of expectations, I'm looking right now, FanDuel, presenting sponsor for this show and others here on the Believe Network. Favorites to win the AFC East, Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I know.
Not the defending AFC champion New England Patriots. So, I mean, this is a season of great expectation. And I don't know that they do it, and I don't know that it's necessarily fair to expect them to do it in terms of winning a Super Bowl in year one under Joe Brady, right? But
the expectation is that, Adam.
The expectation is absolutely that. And, I mean, you only have so many kicks at the can left with Allen in his prime.
Yeah.
And they better very much be a part of the conversation. I do think that New England's going to get better here.
They will.
And
they've got money to spend.
I don't want to get into division prognostications when we haven't even got to free agency or the draft yet, right? Or through training camps or the preseason or anything like that. But I brought that up as an example because I think it speaks to the level of expectation and where the bar is set with all of this going on and a new head coach and them trying to improve upon their draft performance, quite frankly, near the top of it. It's going to be necessary as they move forward and try and get this done.
There's no bumper here. There's no bumper bowling here, right? For the Bills. They're expected to go win the Super Bowl. That's why Terry Pegula fired Sean McDermott, right? The proverbial playoff wall that they couldn't get over. He didn't fire McDermott and promote Brady to continually bang into the proverbial wall. He expects Joe Brady to go over that wall this year. He realizes Josh Allen's going to be 30 years old shortly here. I think he turns 30. There's still time with Josh Allen. The people are crazy. He's still going to be here for probably 7 or 8 years. Will he be as great 7 or 8 years from now? Probably not. The window is not close to being closed yet, but there is a time element, right? They've been kicking at it for a long time with Josh. It's been really since 2020, since they became a legitimate Super Bowl contender, and they haven't come close. They have not gotten there yet. So, yeah, I think it's a win now mode for the Bills. There's going to be a lot of pressure. And Joe Brady, I think, realizes that. I think he understands that he's stepping into a situation that a lot of first-time head coaches don't get. Most first-time head coaches go to shitty teams, right? He's stepping into a team that can win the Super Bowl this year. So there's a lot of pressure, and he's going to need to get it done.
All right. And as part of that now, the acquisition, again, the news breaking here that the Bills won't become official till the new league year begins on Wednesday. But the reports are out there. The Bills trading for Chicago wide receiver, a new number one wide receiver, at least the way the roster is constituted at this point, and DJ Moore. The Chicago Bears sending a second-round pick there. They get a fifth-rounder back from Chicago as well as part of that deal. So for Sal Maiorana, the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle, have full coverage in the paper. As always, I'm Adam Benigni of WGRZ TV and Sports Talk Live Buffalo. Thanks for being with us here on Believe in Bills. Oops. It doesn't want to do it, Sal. It doesn't want to end. It wants more from us here on this show.
I'm trying to hit it too. It's not recording.
Here we go.